Sweden, they design SUVs just a little differently. Take this one, Volvo's XC40, a contender that's much more than just a smaller version of the brand's larger models. It gets its own CMA platform and some very distinct design to set itself apart. The result is an interesting alternative to more mainstream premium branded compact SUVs, whether you're looking at a mild hybrid, plug-in hybrid or full EV drivetrain, and one that in this improved form you might rather like.
Every premium brand needs a small SUV, preferably one that can run with both combustion, PHEV and full EV powertrains. This is Volvo's offering, the XC40, which we first tested at launch back in 2018. 5 years on, it's a very different package, whether you fuel it or charge it. So different, in fact, that here we are in spring 2023, taking a completely fresh look at this car, ready to bring you the industry's most comprehensive review of it. A word or two first on what's changed since that original test. Well, the first big update arrived in the autumn of 2019 with the introduction of a T5 plug-in hybrid powertrain and an entry-level T2 version of the base three-cylinder model. More significantly, at the same time, Volvo announced a full EV version, initially only available in powerful twin-motor all-wheel drive form and sold with P8 badging. But hardly anyone was interested at the prices being asked. So 2020 saw the Swedish brand completely rejuvenating the combustion side of the range. The conventional T4 and T5 petrol units were updated to mild hybrid 48-volt B4 and B5 status, and a more affordable T4 version of the plug-in hybrid powertrain arrived, all of which emboldened the brand to drop diesel power for XC40 folk. With that sorted, Volvo turned its attention back to the fully electric EV version, which in autumn 2021 got rebadged as the Recharge Pure Electric. And at the same time, the powerful twin-motor all-wheel drive drivetrain was joined by a more affordable front-driven version. Still with us? Well, now to the key changes that have brought us to the version of this car we have here. Volvo announced a mild facelift in spring 2022, which for the two remaining B3 and B4 non-plug-in models also included the introduction of the advanced Android-powered infotainment system that the EV variants had from the start. Then in spring 23, the EV version we're trying here got some really far-reaching changes. A switch from front to rear-wheel drive for the base single-motor version, and different front and rear e-motors for the twin-motor version we're testing today. Plus, faster charging times and higher EV driving range figures across the lineup. In other words, lots is very different about the XC40 in this form. But will all these changes really be enough to justify properly premium pricing and allow Volvo to keep up with more recently introduced segment rivals? Well, you'll need the industry's most comprehensive review, the car and driving road test, to find out. Volvo SUVs aren't generally burdened with customer expectations of super sharp handling dynamics, but they absolutely must ride with decorum, function with refinement, and be relaxing to use. If that defines the minimum requirement here, then we'd say the XC40 slightly exceeds it, without ever really allowing any degree of driving enjoyment to get in the way of its day-to-day duties. Few segment rivals manage to be much different, and offhand we can't think of any of them that ride much better than this car over poor surfaces. Tarmac tears, expansion joints and speed humps are dispatched with the kind of confidence you might more ordinarily expect from a much larger model. All of which means that on the test drive your first impressions will probably be quite positive. True, the steering doesn't provide much feedback, but it's nicely weighted and pleasingly direct, complementing the fact that sudden changes of direction aren't as unwelcome here as they are in some high-sided affordable SUVs. That's mainly thanks to this car's compact modular architecture, or CMA platform, a world removed from the heavy, clunky underpinnings that previous generation compact Volvo models had to lug about. Plus, grip levels are assured, body roll is reasonably well controlled through the corners, and very little noise makes its way through to the cabin. You'll be wanting to know about what lies beneath the bonnet. Well, absolutely nothing, of course, with this Recharge pure electric model, and we'll get to that shortly. But the XC40 range does still include some combustion-based offerings, though Volvo seems less and less interested these days in promoting them. The neat little 3-cylinder 1.5-litre petrol unit and the 4-cylinder 2-litre diesels that most XC40 customers chose at this car's original launch are long gone, as is the option of manual transmission, and for fueled versions, all-wheel drive. Instead, the brand offers entry-level versions of this car with a 2-litre petrol unit embellished with 48-volt mild hybrid tech, an engine available in 2 states of tune, either way linked to a smooth shifting 7-speed auto gearbox. Your starting point is the 163 horsepower B3, which makes 62 miles an hour in 8.6 seconds, but you could also choose the 197 horsepower version, the B4, which takes a second off that time on the way to the 112 mile an hour top speed figure that these days all Volvos share. A torque rise from 265 to 300 newton meters on the B4 boosts the brake towing weight from 1,600 to 2,000 kilograms. The mild hybrid system on B3 and B4 models works as this kind of tech usually does. So there's a 48-volt battery, a KERS kinetic energy recovery system, and an ISG integrated starter generator. Every time you brake or take your foot from the throttle, the KERS setup captures surplus energy and stores it as electricity in an extra battery provided in the boot. That additional electricity can be used to boost the engine if needed while accelerating, and that power boost might also be used to restart the engine when the stop-start system kicks in at low speeds. All this surplus energy might be directed to help power auxiliary functions. Volvo's overall objective here wasn't to provide Prius-like periods of electric-only driving, but instead make the engine more efficient via smoother transitions between driving, cruising and resting. That's all been aided by revisions to the automatic gearbox and the implementation of a brake-by-wire system. But it's not really necessary to know any of this if you're an XC40, B3 or B4 driver. The technology is so seamlessly built into the powertrain that you simply don't notice it. There are certainly no fancy graphics, nor do you have to press any buttons or plug anything in. Of course, you might want to plug your XC40 in, and if you do, there's the choice of either plug-in hybrid or full EV powertrains. The plug-in hybrid version's based around the old 3-cylinder 1.5-litre petrol unit. This engine offered in either 129 horsepower form in the T4 plug-in or 180 horsepower guise in the T5 plug-in. Either way, the powertrain incorporates an 82 horsepower electric motor with rest to 62 miles an hour taking 8.5 seconds in the T4 or 7.3 in the T5. Pure hybrid and power drive modes are available with these PHEV derivatives. To be frank though, it's not very likely that you're going to want an XC40 plug-in hybrid variant. Both are pricey and both deliver EV driving range at around 28 miles and efficiency figures that are now surpassed by most direct segment rivals. What Volvo really wants, though, is for you to consider one of the full EV Recharge pure electric models, like the one we're driving here. We tested one of these as recently as 2021, but so much has changed since then that a reacquaintance with this car has proved necessary. This model was initially only available in potent 408 horsepower twin motor form with 75 kilowatt hours of usable battery capacity, which is what we originally tested, just before a more affordable 231 horsepower front-driven single motor model joined the range. What really prompted this retest, though, was Volvo's fundamental change of XC40 EV drivetrain strategy in spring 2023, all in the name of greater efficiency. As part of this, the single motor version switched from front to rear wheel drive with the back axle e-motor fractionally uprated to 238 horsepower, though still powered by the same 69 kilowatt-hour battery pack. That's allowed for a significant 10% improvement in driving range to a WLTP rated figure of 290 miles without any real impact on performance. Rest to 62 miles an hour is dispatched in 7.3 seconds. At the same time, the XC40's twin motor all-wheel drive powertrain, as tested here, also got a fundamental redesign. In this improved form, it gets a larger 82 kilowatt-hour battery, up from 78 before, providing for a much greater 334-mile driving range, and has adopted different front and rear e-motors with 150 and 258 horsepower respectively, in place of the 204 horsepower units previously used on both axles. But the 408 horsepower total power output figures remain the same, so performance is still startling. A massive 670 newton meters of torque, catapulting the car to 62 miles an hour in just 4.7 seconds. Whichever of the two Recharge pure electric models you choose, to get anywhere near the claimed EV mileage, you'll need to engage what the Swedish maker calls one-pedal drive, selectable from the driving menu provided on this centre dash screen. This dramatically increases the regenerative braking effect when you come off the throttle, to the point where, as advertised, the brake pedal will hardly ever be needed, unless you're coming to a complete stop. You can't alter the regenerative braking effect in any other way. Other than that, no driving modes are provided, though there is a screen button to firm up the steering. And as on all XC40s, Volvo provides an off-road mode which works at under 25 miles an hour to manage traction on poor surfaces or deep downhill gradients. Engage off-road on any version of this Volvo, and the powertrain, transmission, accelerator and stability control responses will all be automatically calibrated for off-road use. At the same time, power assistance in the steering is increased and hill descent controls activated to ease you down slippery slopes. Don't get too enthusiastic about the prospect of using any of this enhanced capability with just 176mm of ground clearance in this EV variant. That's 35 less than the regular XC40. The kind of terrain you'll be able to attempt here will be very modestly challenging indeed, though Volvo does quote a 450mm wading depth. Of perhaps more relevance is the fact that, unlike some EV crossovers, this one will be quite comfortable towing thanks to the even distribution of power between the front and rear motors. With the optional retractable tow bar fitted, you'll be able to tug along up to 1.5 tonnes. But all of this will be largely irrelevant to most likely customers who will be more interested in commuting on tarmac terrain. In single motor form, an XC40 Recharge pure electric is around 350 kilograms heavier than the equivalent B3 mild hybrid model, and you certainly feel that at speed through tight corners. Ride quality, though, as we suggested earlier, is pleasantly supple and better than most similarly sized EV rivals, aided by this EV variant's switch to a softer touring suspension setup. That doesn't deliver a very sharp feel through the bends, but as we've already observed, the distinctly modest level of feedback through the electric steering rack doesn't encourage you to seek that anyway, even if you use the centre screen option that switches the steering to its firmer setting. Of more importance to most likely customers, though, will be this Volvo's laid-back cruising demeanour. Despite the squarical shape, wind noise is well suppressed. And though in this EV model you'll hear tyre roar, that's only because there's no combustion engine chuntering away to mask it. What else might you need to know? Well, whatever kind of XC40 you choose, fueled or full battery powered, get the kind of properly raised SUV-like driving position that not all rivals provide. That's obviously a boon for urban manoeuvring. And for highway driving, there's an IntelliSafe Pro pack that's standard above base trim with the EV, but requires top-spec trim to be chosen with the combustion models. It's worth stretching to, if budget permits, including Volvo's effective pilot assist system, are set up that at cruising speeds of up to 80 miles an hour can effectively drive for you. It's able to take care of the steering, throttle and braking on major roads, reading the white lines on the road and keeping you firmly between them. As with the Mercedes version of this system, you have to keep your hands on the steering wheel for the system to be operable. A piercing beep admonishes you if you let go of it. It's all very sensible, assured and predictable, words that sum up most aspects of this XC40's confidently measured approach to drive dynamics, which is one of the main reasons why potential buyers will like it so much. The obvious way to style this car would simply have been to merely shrink the themes established with Volvo's larger SUVs. That's usually what competitors do. But British XC40 designer Ian Kettle wanted this car to be different, which is why back in 2017 we got this, a concept inspired by the small robots he used to watch in science fiction films. Curvy conformities replaced by chunky cuteness with a Transformer-esque vibe. Not everyone will like it, but then if everyone did, it wouldn't be such an interesting piece of design. Volvo hasn't felt the need to change things very much since the original launch. The signature Thor's Hammer headlamps have lately been embellished with state-of-the-art pixel LED light technology. But the main change lies with these redesigned lower corner cutouts, originally horizontal, now refashioned into a kind of rocket shape as part of a redesigned front bumper. Visual differentiation between the combustion-based models and this full EV version is easy. This EV gets this blanked-off, frameless, solid grille plate. From the side, the looks of this XC40 remain distinctive, divisive even, perhaps a little unkindly. One writer likened the profile perspective of this car to that of an old-fashioned pram. You might visualise the Tonka toys you played with as a child, or perhaps designer Ian Kettle's robot Transformers. But almost everyone we've spoken to sees the style of this car in a different way and seems to have an opinion, which in itself is a good reason to like it. Moving back, there's this deep concave scalloped cutout decorating the lower part of the door line. Plus you get the usual SUV touches, roof rails along with black plastic trimmed wheel arches. The rear is less willfully controversial, but very stylish, with a look that, if you know your premium SUVs, could only belong to a Volvo. That's thanks to these 3D tail lights that emphasise the body shoulder line and border the tailgate, flowing up into this smart roof-mounted spoiler. And lower down, slim reflectors are built into the bottom part of the bumper. Of course, as usual, what's more important is the stuff you can't see. Whereas the brand's XC60 and XC90 SUVs sit on the SPA, or Scalable Product Architecture chassis that the company uses for its larger models, this car uses a smaller, cheaper, but still pretty sophisticated, compact modular architecture platform that it shares most notably with sleeker C40 coupe SUV version of this model and with its cousin, the Polestar 2. Before we take a look inside up front, let's also mention this Care Key, which enables owners to set speed limits when lending their cars to younger or inexperienced drivers, which is useful in this particular case given the provision of over 400 brake horses from this battery powertrain. Right, what about the interior? Is it as young and different as the exterior tries to be? Not really, but it'll suit the target demographic just fine. A familiar Volvo feel mixed with quality, sustainability and technology. A dose of crushing conventionality here would have been a disappointment after the extrovert exterior Unfortunately, that's not what's been served up. Instead, you get digital dials, a dose of Swedish minimalism, and door cards made of a weird felt, apparently fashioned from recycled drinks bottles, and even a bit of fashion in the case of this top ultimate version, which gets arty dash and door panels that illuminate with backlit, translucent three-dimensional graphics, apparently traced from the mountainous topography of Sweden's Abisko National Park. Even with that, your eye will fall upon these unusual Star Wars-style vertical vents that frame the 9-inch central screen. Interested yet? You wouldn't expect the material quality to be quite as high as it is on Volvo's larger, pricier SUVs. Actually, though, the standards achieved get quite close thanks to the way that the designers have cut down the number of mouldings to reduce tooling costs, meaning that the spend on things like switches can still be quite high. The ambience is also enhanced by the way that the upright dashboard is so relatively uncluttered. In fact, there are only 8 buttons on the fascia, complemented by simple, straightforward ones on the 3-spoke wheel that control the 12.3-inch instrument screen, either an active TFT Crystal driver's information display on the combustion-based models, or the progressive driver display that's fitted to an EV variant like this one. As usual with setups of this sort, the digital dials are separated by a customisable central space that can display a navigational map, trip computer info, or your chosen phone or media settings. There are other technical niceties we've appreciated too. The Clean Zone interior air quality system, for example. This automatically switches to recirculation mode if outside conditions change, say in a polluted city centre or when you enter a smoky tunnel. We'd also point potential buyers towards the optional 13-speaker, 600-watt Harman Kardon sound system. Anything you can't find covered within this virtual dial setup has been grouped into menu options that lie behind the icons you'll find on this centre dash touchscreen. We call it a touchscreen. In fact, the swipe functionality of this monitor's crystal clear display works by intersecting light rays rather than touch, so you don't need to actually touch the glass surface, leaving smeary prints. Merely put your finger near it. This means you can operate the thing wearing gloves, an important consideration in cold climates such as that in this car's home market. This is assuming you don't want to use the system's voice-controlled functionality, which is one of the things dramatically improved since the last time we tested this car at its original launch. Since then, the original Sensus centre screen setup has been dispensed with in favour of Volvo's latest Android infotainment system, as also used by the Polestar 2, which includes worldwide navigation to Google Maps, advanced voice recognition by Google Assistant, and access to the Google Play Store for a range of in-car apps. Since the introduction of this setup, Volvo's added YouTube access and, more significantly, Apple CarPlay to this screen's range of functions too. The adoption of Google Assistant brings huge advances in voice control, allowing customers by speech to control the car's major functions, perform detailed web searches, and even connect to Google connected devices at home. The upright monitor's home screen looks similar to that of the old Sensus setup, primarily made up of 4 horizontal bars, say, as in this case, maps, audio, phone, and the car's range assistant, some of which you can swipe to the right for more info. More key options lie along the bottom frame of the monitor, including in the centre a fan icon, which connects you into the climate system functions, which unfortunately haven't been separated out into more accessible physical buttons. To the left and right along the screen's bottom edge lie your main access points for information. On EV variants like this one, that range assistant we just mentioned, which helps you with EV range and energy consumption, is one of the features that sit behind this Windows icon on the bottom left. This icon is also your access point for a car status section, plus maps, Bluetooth, radio, phone, the Google Play online store, and options for controlling the Google Voice Assistant we mentioned earlier. For all the stuff you'll want concerning driving functions, you'll need a separate section which sits behind this cog icon on the bottom right of the home screen. This connects you into a menu with driving, charging, sound, connectivity, controls, apps and Google sections. It's the driving segment you'll mainly need Within this, there's a key menu that includes the car's off-road mode, pilot assist functions, safety assistance features, and a driving dynamics section where you can access a firmer steering feel option, and on EVs can select the car's one-pedal drive brake regeneration function. Enough on media stuff. What else? Well, the seats are as good as they usually are on Volvos, heated with lumbar support as standard and properly supportive for longer trips. Plus, the elevated seating position combines with these slim windscreen pillars to give you a good view forward. Over-the-shoulder vision is compromised by the kicked-up rear window line, something Volvo tries to compensate for by providing rear parking sensors as standard across the range. Avoid base trim and you get front sensors and a rear view camera set up too. The top 360 degree view version of the latter being one of the best systems of its type we've tried. With this top trim level, there's also a useful screen button that automatically retracts the rear head restraints to improve your rearward vision. And let's finish here at the front of the cabin with a look at interior practicality. The door pockets, which have bottle recesses at the end, are nicely carpeted to stop small items from moving around, and huge, big enough to even take a laptop, mainly because the audio speakers that would usually reside down here have been moved to the fascia and the top of the door cards. You also get this big illuminated storage area at the base of the centre stack, complete with twin USB ports and a 12-volt socket. Plus, there's a wireless charging mat included as well, and a little lidded cubby. A rather useful narrow storage channel resides in the front passenger footwell. We're not really sure what these clips at the base of the A-pillars are for, but more usefully, twin cup holders sit by the small stubby gear stick, with a small lidded cubby further back that turns out to be a removable waste bin. A much larger storage area is just behind, and not so good is the lack of a standard overhead sunglasses compartment and the restricted size of the glove box, which is smaller than it looks and rather unnecessarily is almost completely taken up with the owner's manual. A digital version of that features on the centre screen. That glove box does, though, include a pen clip and a neat fold-out hook, which can sit proud on the dash after the glove box is closed, perfect for your handbag or Friday night takeaway. Other nice touches include the provision of a parking ticket clip at the base of the windscreen and the way that plastic payment cards can be pointed into slots in the lower dash by your right knee. Time to try out the back. Now, the protruding leading angle of this rear door means you should take a slight step back as you open it. A distinctive style sometimes has practical payoff, and in this case, the squarical shape delivers a useful dose of extra roof height, 36mm more than you get in a rival BMW X1 or Mercedes GLA model. That ought to really benefit rear seat folk. Which it does. Headroom's generous, even if you've got this panoramic glass roof fitted, and the relatively lengthy wheelbase helps with legroom too. We're not so keen on the way that the angled style of the rear C-pillar might create something of a claustrophobic feel back here for younger folk. If you've got children, take them along on the test drive to make sure they'll be happy here. This seat base unfortunately doesn't slide or recline, but the rear headrests are well placed and comfortable, and as we said earlier, they can also fold down at the touch of a button on the centre dash touchscreen up front. As is unfortunately quite common on cars in this class, you will struggle to accommodate 3 adults over longer distances because of this very prominent centre transmission tunnel, the sort of thing you'd think would be unnecessary on an EV variant like this one. 2 folk, though, should be very comfortable indeed, and they're provided with a central armrest, incorporating a pair of cup holders, plus beverages can also sit in the provided moulded recesses in the little carpeted door pockets. In addition, there are the usual seat back pockets, and you get little storage trays between the seat base edges and the doors. The vertical, rather futuristic air vents used at the front make an appearance back here, and there's also a pair of USB-C charging ports. Finally, let's take a look in the boot. Now, the standard power-operated tailgate raises to reveal a low loading lip over which you access a cargo area rated at 452 litres, regardless of whether you choose a combustion-based or full EV model. That's a bit less than you'd get in a BMW X1 at 540 litres or a Range Rover Evoque at 591, but quite a bit more than would be provided by a Mercedes GLA at 435 litres. There are some really nice convenience touches here, principally this neat divider, which, providing you avoid the PHEV versions, is standard above base trim and can rise and divide the space laterally to stop your shopping from sliding around. The hinges of this divider even stand proud of its top edge, giving you hooks from which you can hang shopping bags. Delve down under the floor and not much more space is available, despite the fact that there's no spare wheel provided as standard. But you do get small compartments on either side. This elasticated right-hand strap and bag hooks on both cargo sidewalls. If you need more room, then a ski hatch is provided for longer items. That's some compensation for the fact that you can't have the useful 40-20-40 rear seat back split that rivals like the BMW X1 or the Volkswagen Tiguan offer. Push forward the 60-40 split backrest and up to 1,336 litres of total capacity is revealed if you load to the roof. And that's only 59 litres less than you get in the larger XC60. This full electric version also gets an additional 31-litre frunk of storage space beneath the bonnet for the charging leads. If you've looked at the various premium brand rivals targeted by this car, you'll have a pretty good idea of what to expect here when it comes to pricing. Now, we'll quote you figures current at the time of this test in spring 2023. As we filmed, the entry-level mild hybrid B3 and B4 petrol XC40 models sat in the £36,000 to £45,000 bracket, similar to the level targeted by most posher brand competitors. In other words, about £5,000 to £10,000 above similarly sized Qashqai class family hatch-based SUVs from the mainstream volume makers, depending on your point of comparison. That base £36,000 starting price we just quoted, by the way, applies only to the base core trim level that most XC40 customers avoid, a spec only offered with the feeblest B3 mild hybrid petrol power plant. The majority of XC40 folk will be choosing between two better equipped spec options, mid-level plus, or as in this case, top ultimate. And if you stick with those two trim options, you won't be limited when it comes to powertrain choice. Bear in mind that there's no longer a diesel engine option in the lineup, nor can you any longer have all-wheel drive on any sort of combustion engined XC40. If you'd like your XC40 with a petrol plug-in hybrid powertrain, then there's quite a premium to pay for it. As we filmed, the T4 version costs from just under £45,000, only offered with plus trim, while the faster T5 variant, only offered with top ultimate spec, was pitched from just under £52,000, both of them front-driven. Here, as you'll know if you've watched the other sections of this film, we've been testing the full EV version, which is at its most affordable from just over £46,500 as we filmed, in rear-driven single-motor 238 horsepower form. Just over £5,000 more gets you the alternative twin-motor version we're trying here. Those figures are for base core trim. As with the combustion models, there are also Plusher Plus and Ultimate spec levels available. The latter, as tested here in the twin motor guise, taking the asking price to a hefty figure of nearly £62,000 at the time of this test. If you like what's on offer here but want a sleeker, sportier look, then a model-for-model premium of just under £1,800 gets you Volvo's alternative, more coupe-like C40 recharge model. We've been talking asking prices so far, but we shouldn't ignore the fact that most customers increasingly prefer to acquire ownership via some sort of lease or PCP finance deal. As we filmed, the brand's Car by Volvo package was offering an XC40 B3 mild hybrid recharge from around £285 a month, based on a 48-month fixed term with 6,000 miles a year, based around a £5,000 advance payment. The same Car by Volvo package was also offering a pure electric rear-driven model from around £595 a month, again based on a 48-month fixed term with 6,000 miles a year, based around a £5,000 advance payment. Either way, those monthly amounts include servicing, maintenance, wear and tear items, roadside assistance and vehicle tax. Two different Care by Volvo packages are offered. The figures just quoted apply to the subscription fixed package, where you commit to a fixed term. There's also the alternative of subscription flex, which offers an open-ended 3-month rolling contract for greater flexibility and convenience. You might possibly want to use that to dip your toe into the whole EV ownership concept. And with the EV version, with either package, customers have the option of adding insurance or choosing to use their own broker. With combustion-based XC40s, that option only applies with the subscription flex package. However you choose to acquire your new XC40, with the full asking price or some sort of finance deal, the figures won't mean too much without some kind of competitor value context. So let's try and give that to you now. Starting with the combustion mild hybrid B3 model, the £36,000 asking figure we gave you for that earlier is a fraction more than a base petrol BMW X1, but a fraction less than a base petrol Mercedes GLA. Both of those are also mild hybrids. We should point out, though, that you can get a considerably more frugal full hybrid model in this class, the Lexus UX, for over £1,000 less than an XC40 B3. And if you're not hung up on the idea of electrical tech, then we'll mention that similar efficiency figures can be achieved by a base petrol version of the Audi Q3 at around £3,000 less, or the Cupra Formentor around £4,500 less. And as we filmed, base petrol versions of the Jaguar E-Pace and the Range Rover Evoque were a lot more expensive, starting from around £43,000, though the latter does have standard all-wheel drive. If you're one of the rare people looking at the plug-in hybrid version of this XC40, you'll need to know that it's the most expensive two-wheel drive model in the class. PHEV versions of the Range Rover Evoque and the Jaguar E-Pace cost a few £1,000s more, but they're all-wheel drive, as, by the way, is the BMW X1 xDrive 25e, which at the time of our test cost around £2,500 less than an XC40 T4 plug-in, but went nearly twice as far on EV drive. Other two-wheel drive PHEV class rivals that'll save you a few thousand include the Audi Q3, 35 TFSI-E and the Cupra Formentor e-hybrid. The Mercedes GLA 250e costs about the same as an XC40 T4 plug-in, but goes a lot further on EV drive. What about rivals for this Recharge pure electric EV model? Well, it's difficult to understand why Volvo's decided that the base rear drive version starting price of around £48,000 should be £3,000 above the identically engineered and arguably more premium base standard range single motor version of the Polestar 2, particularly as that base Polestar 2 variant goes further on a single charge. A two-wheel drive pure electric XC40 costs around £3,000 more than a base rear-driven Tesla Model Y as well, though does do a fraction better on EV range. Not everything in the class costs less, of course. An Audi Q4 40 e-tron costs from around £50,000, while a Mercedes EQA in base 250 Plus form costs from around £52,000. The full electric XC40's value proposition is better if you're considering it in this twin-motor all-wheel drive form, which, as we said, requires a price starting point from around £53,000. As we filmed, that was bang on what you'd pay for a dual-motor Tesla Model Y or Mercedes EQA 300 4MATIC. Around £1,500 less than a BMW iX1 and nearly £3,000 less than's required for an Audi Q4 50 e-tron Quattro. Plus, all of the all-wheel drive EVs just mentioned fail to match the prodigious 408 horsepower output of a twin-motor Recharge pure electric XC40. The only class rival that can is the identically engineered Polestar 2 long-range dual-motor model, which costs the same as a twin-motor XC40. OK, so we've crunched all the competitor numbers, so you don't have to. If, having considered all of that, you do conclude that it is some sort of XC40 that you really want, just how generous has Volvo been with standard spec? Well, let's take a look at that now. All models get full LED headlights with active high beam, alloy wheels of at least 18 inches in size, a powered tailgate, rear parking sensors and auto headlamps and wipers. Plus, roof rails and high gloss silver front and rear skid plates. There's cruise control, adjustable steering force for the speed sensitive steering, and hill descent control with an off-road drive mode. You get a very complete level of camera safety kit too, and we'll brief you on that shortly. Inside on all XC40s, you'll get a 12.3-inch screen in the instrument binnacle to replace conventional dials, and there's a wireless phone charger, a load protection net, and 2-zone electronic climate control, complete with Volvo's Clean Zone air quality system and pollen filter. The front seats have heating and lumbar support and come upholstered in eco-friendly textile upholstery. There's a very complete media connectivity offering as well, accessed via a 9-inch centre console portrait touchscreen. At the time of our filming, plug-in hybrid XC40s were still persisting with the older Sensus version of this setup, but provided you avoid one of those, this centre monitor will come complete with Volvo's pioneering new infotainment setup, powered by Android and developed by Google. This system includes worldwide navigation to Google Maps, advanced voice recognition by Google Assistant, and access to the Google Play Store for a range of in-car apps. The adoption of Google Assistant brings huge advances in voice control, allowing customers to control the car's major functions, perform detailed web searches, and even connect to Google connected devices at home merely by speaking. And of course, via the centre screen, you can do all the conventional things as well, like accessing an 8-speaker, 250-watt, high-performance sound DAB audio system using Bluetooth or navigation, or linking into Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring. There's YouTube access as well. The touchscreen receives software updates over the air, so the system's functionality will continue to improve as the technology develops. And all of this is in addition to the Volvo Cars app, connected services platform, which is fitted to every new Volvo. This enables customers to control various aspects of their car's function from their smartphone, smartwatch, or tablet. For example, the car's cabin can be remotely heated or cooled before your journey, doors can be unlocked or locked, and you can make the car's headlights flash or sound the horn to help locate the car in a crowded car park. Extra functionality added to the pure electric version of this XC40 includes mapping that shows the location of charging stations and route planning that will include stops at charging points if necessary. Should you go further and consider an upgrade to the pricier trim levels we mentioned earlier? Well, most XC40 customers will. The mid-range plus spec is distinguished from base core spec by the addition of front fog lamps and a different 5 double-spoke design for the 18-inch alloy wheels. In addition, at plus level, you get keyless entry, puddle lights, front parking sensors, auto-dimming mirrors, a heated windscreen and a hands-free feature for the remote tailgate so that you can open it with a wave of your foot beneath the bumper. Inside at plus level, you'll find a 360-degree camera system, powered operation with memory settings for the driver's seat, front seat cushion extensions, an air purifier, aluminium tread plates, ambient lighting and a heated steering wheel. For rear folk, there's heated back seats and reading lights, and for the boot, providing you avoid the PHEVs, there's a flexible load floor with grocery bag holders. Top ultimate trim level we have here gets all the real niceties. Larger 19-inch wheels, a powered panoramic glass roof, active blending pixel LED headlamps with a cleaning system and dark tinted rear windows. Inside at ultimate level, you get upholstery partly trimmed in suede-like Microtech, Power folding rear seat headrests, power operation for the front passenger seat, topography dash and door trim inlays, and a 12-speaker, 800-watt Harman Kardon premium sound system with Dolby Pro Logic, a subwoofer and surround sound. There's also some extra camera safety kit too, principally Volvo's IntelliSafe Pro safety package, which includes level 2 semi-autonomous driving capability, courtesy of the brand's Pilot Assist and adaptive cruise control driver assistance features. Lots of choice then. What about options? Well, actually there aren't that many. Volvo charges extra for a spare wheel, and if you haven't stretched to Ultimate trim, you can add rear tinted windows on the lower order models. And on the base core version, a climate pack that adds heat for the rear seats, the steering wheel and the windscreen, plus an air purifier. Plus models can be optionally had with part Microtech upholstery, and on the Ultimate, you can choose to have the upholstery in leather-faced form or with a wool blend. There are smarter 19-inch wheel designs available for core and plus models, and you can upgrade to big 20-inch rims on this top Ultimate version. Bear in mind also that you'll almost certainly be paying Volvo more for your choice of paint colour, because there's only one standard shade, and that's Vapor Grey. We've got Sage Green here. Practical extras that will particularly appeal to SUV buyers include a retractable tow bar, plus there's a range of roof boxes and racks for roof boxes, skis, snowboards, bikes and so on. Other additions could include the usual mud flaps, purpose-designed child seats and booster cushions, and even a dog harness. For the boot, we'd want a luggage net and the moulded plastic mat you can get to protect the cargo floor as well. On to safety, which, as you'd expect, is a Volvo strong point and has been ever since 1959, when the brand invented the 3-point seatbelt we all now use. Today, the company continues its safety ambitions with the most daring and far-reaching safety objective in the industry, that no one should ever be killed or seriously injured in a new Volvo. To help achieve that, right from this XC40's original launch, it's been offered as standard with a whole range of IntelliSafe features, a number of them still unusual to find in the class. Take the standard oncoming lane mitigation setup, for example. If you move out of your lane and inadvertently find yourself in the path of an oncoming vehicle, the system will immediately alert you to the potential danger, while simultaneously and automatically providing steering assistance to guide you safely back into your lane. That might be a little alarming for you if you're one of those habitual do-or-die overtakers. But what else? Well, we particularly highlight the two run-off-road packages. First, there's run-off-road mitigation, which gently steers you back into lane if you drift towards the verge. And if that's not enough to prevent the car leaving the highway, then run-off-road protection activates. Initially, it pre-tensions the aforementioned seatbelts and airbags. But what's really unique about this setup is that if the car's launched into the air and thumps down, as often happens in such a situation, a little mini shock absorber in the front seat frame protects your body from the damage that might otherwise be inflicted upon your lower spine. At the same time, Volvo's usual WHIPS, or WHIPS, protection guards against whiplash on your neck. But of course, the whole point of modern electronic automotive safety is to prevent such an accident from happening in the first place. And the greatest aid to that goal in recent times has been the introduction of autonomous braking systems that can brake for you if you don't respond to warnings about forthcoming collision dangers. These are usually camera-driven setups that scan the road ahead, looking for potential accident hazards as you drive. The better ones specifically identify pedestrians as well. You also get that kind of system in an XC40, but this one, known as the City Safety Package, is cleverer still, thanks to its large animal detection feature. Now, you might think that there's a relatively low likelihood of you ever hitting a large animal, but Volvo doesn't, and with good reason. Apparently, a third of all accidents in Sweden are of this type, so there's long been a genuine need for someone to do something about it. This particular setup was originally developed to deal with elk and moose, but for our shores is said to be particularly effective at warning you when deer are approaching from the side of a dark road ahead. An inclusive part of the city safety package that we really like is the full auto brake element. Let's say you're momentarily distracted and go to move off from a roundabout or come out of a turning directly in front of another car. Well, you won't be able to. Your XC40 will detect the oncoming vehicle and automatically apply the brakes to prevent the collision. Some of the other standard camera-driven safety features may be more familiar to you. If on the highway you veer over the lane delineation markings at cruising speeds, a lane-keeping aid will steer the car gently back to where it ought to be. That kind of scenario is most likely to happen if you're feeling tired. So there's also a driver alert control system that monitors your driving reactions for drowsiness, and a road sign information display that pictures signs as you pass, then showing them to you on the dash. We shouldn't forget the passive safety kit either. You get twin front, side and curtain airbags, plus a driver's knee airbag, ISOFIX child seat fastenings and a pedestrian-friendly active bonnet. The ABS setup has emergency brake assist for panic stops, and while the stability and traction control systems include spin control, corner traction control and an engine drag control feature that stops the car from skidding when the gearbox sharply down changes on a slippery surface. And as mentioned earlier, as part of the Volvo Cars app, you get an emergency and roadside assistance support system that'll sense if your car is involved in a collision and alert a trained operator to immediately contact your vehicle. If no response is detected, the emergency services will be instantly informed. If you want more, then you'll need to have stretched to this top ultimate level of trim, which, as we said earlier, gets to the brand's IntelliSafe Pro safety package. This gives you the radar-driven adaptive cruise control that'll automatically regulate this XC40 speed on the highway and allows Volvo to fit its own interpretation of the current state of autonomous driving technology, the company's Pilot Assist system. This is a setup that at cruising speeds of up to 80 miles an hour can effectively drive for you. It's able to take care of the steering, throttle and braking on major roads, reading the white lines on the road and keeping you firmly between them. As with the Mercedes version of this system, you have to keep your hands on the steering wheel for the system to be operable. A piercing beep admonishes you if you let go of it. There are 3 other included camera-driven safety features in the IntelliSafe Pro pack. A cross-traffic alert setup warns you if you're reversing out of a space into the path of an oncoming car, and a rear collision mitigation system uses rear-facing radars to detect an impending collision. If one is imminent, your XC40's rear tail lights will flash to alert the oncoming driver, at the same time as your seatbelts are tightened and the brakes are applied to prevent your vehicle being pushed out into oncoming traffic. The final IntelliSafe Pro Pack feature is a blind spot information system, and a very clever one. Like other camera-driven blind spot setups, this one warns you if there's a vehicle you haven't seen when you're just about to pull out to overtake. However, this one goes further, using the steer assist technology we mentioned earlier to automatically bring your car back into its own lane if you're travelling between 37 and 87 miles an hour. It's all very reassuring. Volvo's declared that its future lies in electrification, but for the present there's very much still a need to make the humble combustion engine deliver of its best. Hence the development of 48-volt mild hybrid technology for the core 2-litre petrol engine used in the most affordable B3 and B4 models, a unit electrified via brake-by-wire energy recovery and enhanced by the company's advanced kinetic energy recovery braking system. This setup claims to offer drivers up to 15% fuel savings and emission reductions in real-world driving. But you wouldn't really know that by a comparative glance at the WLTP rated figures. Both B3 and B4 variants return identical readings, 42.1 mpg on the combined cycle and up to 152 grams per kilometre of CO2. To give you some segment perspective, we'll tell you that a rival Audi Q3 35 TFSI S-Tronic manages 43.5 mpg and 147 grams per kilometre. And a rival BMW X1 S-Drive 20i manages up to 47.1 mpg and 136 grams per kilometre. Still, you can't have everything. An SUV that's particularly strong, tough and laden with safety equipment has to make a few compromises somewhere, and in the case of the mild hybrid XC40, they haven't been too great. We were also a little disappointed by the readings of the plug-in hybrid XC40 model, which looked quite good back at its launch in autumn 2019, but has since been surpassed by most segment rivals. Both T4 and T5 plug-in models return very similar readings, up to 134.5 mpg on the combined cycle, and a CO2 return rated at 47 grams per kilometre for the T4 and 49 for the T5. The EAER rated EV mileage with everything fully charged is rated at 28.6 miles for the T4 and 28 miles for the T5. Charging from empty to full takes 3 hours using a 7.4 kilowatt wall box. Onto the EV model we're trying here. We've already given you this XC40 Recharge Pure Electric model's operating range in our driving experience section, a maximum of 290 miles in single motor form and up to 334 for this twin motor all-wheel drive variant. These figures are much improved as a result of the spring 2023 engineering updates made to this car, particularly so in the case of this twin motor version, but they're still some way off the class best. Let's give you some perspective on that. The range reading for the 69 kWh single motor model is now fractionally more than you get from a comparable rear-driven Tesla Model Y at 283 miles. But as we filmed in spring 2023, it remained behind most class rivals, like the Audi Q4 40 e-tron at 316 miles and the Mercedes EQA 250 Plus at 324 miles. It's also well adrift of the figure that exactly the same powertrain delivers in this Volvo's close cousin, the Polestar 2, which in standard range single motor form manages 322 miles from a charge. The changes made to the 82 kWh twin motor version of this XC40 have borne more efficiency fruit. The 334 mile range figure we quoted earlier is now very similar to that of a Tesla Model Y dual motor at 331 miles and significantly better than either a BMW iX1 at 270 or a Mercedes EQA 300 4MATIC at 268 miles. Of course, when it comes to EVs, efficiency readings shouldn't just be about driving range. Volvo's worked hard on charging speeds too, increasing this car's maximum charging rate from 150 to 200 kilowatts, and as a result the rapid charging 10 to 80% time's been cut by 9 minutes to 28. The older tech 400 volt electrical architecture in place here though doesn't enable this Volvo to use the new generation of ultra-rapid public chargers. For those, your EV needs to use the 800 volt system currently only available in this class on 3 Hyundai Group models, the Kia EV6, the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and the Genesis GV60. Most of the time, of course, you'll be charging this Volvo via your own garage wall box, probably one with a 7.4 kilowatt output. With the single motor model, a charge from empty to full will need 10 hours and 45 minutes. With the twin motor version, you'll require 12 hours and 30 minutes. You can, of course, set charging times remotely, in this case via the Volvo Cars app. On the move, a readout at the bottom of the instrument cluster briefs you on battery charge, and above it there's a power meter gauge to show whether you're using charge or regenerating it. The same instrument screen can display trip computer data showing average energy consumption and how far you've driven since your last charge. There are, of course, lots of taxation advantages in running an EV. With this one, as with its main rivals, you'll be rated at just 2% for benefit-in-kind taxation until 2025. As with all EVs, until that date, you'll also be exempt from road tax and the London congestion charge. Servicing will be at the same intervals as any other XC40, which is every year, or 18,000 miles, whichever comes first. But the bill you get should be cheaper because there will be fewer consumables to replace. Though remember that with an EV, tyre wear tends to be greater than with a combustion model. 3 or 5 year prepaid servicing packages are available to help you budget ahead. And most XC40 drivers won't trouble themselves with any of this though, because maintenance will be covered by their Care by Volvo finance package payments. Customers can book a service directly from that Volvo Cars app and use the maintenance pickup and delivery service Volvo Valet, which allows customers to have their cars collected, serviced and returned from the comfort of their own home. What else? Well, there's the usual 3-year or 60,000 mile warranty, but the battery is covered by its own 8-year 100,000 mile warranty. Insurance for this powerful all-wheel drive model will be steep though. The car's rated up at Group 36 to 37E in single motor form, or Group 41 to 42E in this twin motor guise, which is pretty steep even for an EV. The XC40 plug-in hybrid's rated at Group 26E in T4 form, or 30E in T5 guise. As for the mild hybrids, well, the B3's rated at Group 24E. For the B4, it's Group 27E. Finally, residuals. According to the latest CAP data, after 3 years and 36,000 miles, the XC40 Recharge single motor model is expected to retain 55.5% of its original value after 36 months and 60,000 miles. For a T4 version of the plug-in hybrid, the figure's 59.9%, and for the mild hybrid B4 variant, it's 57.7%. To break into the premium brand compact SUV segment, Volvo knew it had to offer something distinctly different to its German rivals, so that's exactly what we got with this XC40. Not everyone likes the looks of this car, but there's no doubt that they've helped the company to target buyers who would never previously have considered a Volvo. Are these people, though, likely to want to own this car in preference to its similarly sized upmarket rivals? Probably a smartly branded German alternative, or perhaps this model's Polestar 2 crossover cousin. Well, that's the big challenge facing Volvo here, and simply being different won't be enough to crack it. Class-leading safety, though, gives this Swedish contender a fighting chance. So does this XC40's high-tech cabin with its more sophisticated infotainment and instrument binnacle screens. You get generally more complete levels of standard equipment too. The drivetrain changes made to this updated XC40 have clearly been very carefully considered and, for the most part, effective, though both combustion-based and EV models still deliver efficiency figures that, for the most part, are a little adrift of what you get from most obvious rivals. Are there other issues? Well, if you can afford the premium asking prices, well, no, not too many. To be frank, this car isn't especially interesting to drive, but that would be more of an issue if its rivals were substantially more engaging, and for the most part, they simply aren't. Anyway, customer priorities in this sector are more focused on getting a slightly higher level of comfort and refinement than would be offered by a volume brand Qashqai class model, the sort of thing this Volvo easily delivers. And in summary, well, most of the other cars in this segment are merely smaller versions of existing models and collectively offer much the same kind of confection, served up in only slightly different ways. In selecting between them, your decision will probably come down to things like price and spec. In contrast, you choose an XC40 because you really wanted to, because it offered something you simply couldn't get elsewhere. Something, well, a bit more unique when it comes to this class of car. If that's what you want, Volvo thinks it has a contender that'll interest you very much.